news, everyone. We have more announcements. Okay, there will be a work day at the clothing room on Thursday, July 5th at 8 a.m. So if you're watching fireworks on the 4th, make sure you still go to bed at a good bedtime so you can get up nice and early and go out and help there. Announced tonight, Sunday, and in bulletin. All right. We thank all of you who have been praying so hard for our dear brother Harry. As the doctor said, the first hurdle is over, but there are still more to come. So we give all thanks and praise to our loving God for answered prayers, but we continue to ask him for his hand of healing and comfort in the hours and days to come. Please join us in an ongoing prayer for Harry, Carol, and their family. Please pray for Owen's mother. She has been sick since last Friday and was taken to the ER today. And Bill Grigsby, I think this is one we haven't read yet, he fell yesterday and broke an ankle. So please pray for a pain-free and quick recovery for him. The CEO group outing will be canceled this week. There is a green notebook on a back table in the foyer labeled Notes for Secretary. If you have an announcement for or a request of Sherry, my mom, please write it in this notebook and she will respond accordingly at her earliest convenience. Thank you. The clothing room will be closed from now until August 2nd. And so if you still don't want to get up for that work day, then that gives you an excuse. You know, you'll get all your work done right then and there, and so you won't have to do it for the next couple months. Ladies' Bible class will meet on Tuesday, July 10th at 10 a.m. Okay, now that I got that over with, here comes the fun part. If it looked like I was trying to find a whole bunch of things, I was getting things to hand out so you guys have some things to kind of fumble through while I'm speaking. That way, if I get too boring, you can kind of look at one of the coins or a whole bunch of other things, and you can still be quite fascinated. I did have New Zealand chocolate at one point, but is it working? Yeah. I did have New Zealand chocolate at one point, but I forgot it at my house. I only had a little bit left, and so I'm not sure if I would have gotten it around to everyone yet. But here's something for an icebreaker. In New Zealand, apparently the outlets are different. They aren't exactly like here in America. Instead of like two straight ones going like this, they're like going diagonally. It's really weird. But to let you kind of know what I'm talking about, I have a little adapter here. This is something that you would plug in your stuff to if you were in New Zealand. That way you could survive. Otherwise, you just go for a few weeks without talking to your friends or family, and they'd feel like you weren't even alive. My parents would probably get worried about me, mostly my mom. But here is this. If you want to take that and pass it around. I don't really know how this circle of passing is going to work, but I reckon you guys will figure out something. But yes, New Zealand mission trip 2018. There and Back Again, A Mission's Tale by Connor Patterson. Here we go. Oh, are you ready to go on an adventure? This is the question I was asking myself. I wasn't sure if I was. Okay, it was kind of scary. This was all the way across the world. I didn't really know what to expect. The only place I'd been to before was Guyana, and as much as I love Guyana, the food and the water didn't really treat me right last time. I'm not going to go into details. If you guys want some separate stories, come ask me later. But I think Josh knows about that better than anyone. No, you just go ask him. But I didn't know that New Zealand is a lot like over here in America. It isn't a third world country like Guyana, and so they have a lot of the luxuries that we have over here. It's a bit different. They don't have central heating. I don't know if it's like conserving energy or something over there. I think they're more avid about it there than they are here. And so all you'd have is like one kind of heater at the kind of near the top of the house or something, and that would kind of be used to heat you. And so you better make sure and take some more blankets and some more coats if you didn't want to get too chilly. But it was over there in the winter time. And so we had to make sure and take a whole bunch of coats. You could see I was really ready to go on an adventure by the look on my face on my passport. Yeah, that was taken a few years back. Oh, this is my suitcase. This is Benzie. He was my best friend. We went everywhere together, but on this trip, sadly, he didn't make it. On one of the times back, they kind of, you never know the people you can trust whenever they're hauling your luggage, but they kind of just threw it up in there a few times, and he was kind of broken up everywhere. And so sadly, Benzie didn't make it, but he lives in our memories and our hearts forever. This is a good kind of, I don't know if you can see that too well, but that's the kind of what it looks like coming from America all the way over to Australia. First, we had to fly from Memphis to Dallas, and surprisingly, that was only an hour long. But then we had a 17-hour trip, and that's longer than me driving in my car over here. Like, that's 13 or 14 hours to get here. But 17 hours in a plane? I'd never been anywhere that long before. I think the one to Guyana was only maybe 5.5 hours, but nowhere near that long. It's really weird because your feet swell up when you're on a plane like that because you don't have all the blood flow going through, and so it feels really weird, but it was a neat experience. This is the plane that we rode on. If you go on any of these international planes, apparently they stick a whole bunch of people on here because they're few and far between. But as you can see, this is a double-decker plane, 2 floors. I didn't know those planes existed. But you've got a row of 3 seats on this side, a row of 3 seats on the other side, and a row of 4 in the middle. And TVs on all of them, and so we were able to keep entertained or just sleep the entire time. I've always wanted to be a little bit taller, but not on this plane trip because I was able to kind of cozy up in this nice sideways position that kind of made it better for laying down and getting some sleep while you're stuck on an airplane. But this is a little bit of what it was looking like going from Australia to New Zealand, and that was maybe another 3 hours. And so altogether, with the layovers and everything, I mean, this takes nearly 2 days to get to your destination. We left on a Monday afternoon, and we didn't get to New Zealand until like Wednesday afternoon. It was funny too because we kind of skipped over Tuesday. We didn't get to live that Tuesday. I assure you when we came back though, we had it a lot worse because we had to live through 2 Mondays in a row. I don't care who you are, at what stage you are in your life, Mondays are always terrible, and to live through 2 Mondays, it was crazy. But God gets you through that kind of stuff. Part 1, Auckland. This is the first place that we went to, and let me tell you a little bit about this. The man sitting right there, his name is Trevor Major. He is the preacher, the evangelist, the missionary over there at the South Auckland Church of Christ. He did a lot of work with Apologetics Press way back in the day. If you guys have heard who Digger Doug was, he voiced him. And so, very, very wonderful guy. And this is his wife, Chris Major. Both very good people. They were the ones who picked us up at the airport whenever we got there in New Zealand. They had a nice, good, big airport there right in Auckland. And so it was kind of them to come pick us up. And this is where they took us to. This is the church building that they have there. I've got a few more shots that I'll show you in a second, kind of give you a more full view. Oh, yes. I think he might be from Zambia or somewhere. I can't remember, but I don't think they're natives to the States at all. But they've both been to the States for a lot of his studies. I think he had been into a lot of science and apologetics and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to hear their stories. You'll find it also that a lot of the missionaries over here in New Zealand, they get supported by the congregations over there in New Zealand, but most of their support comes from over here in America. And so it's kind of fascinating to think of because you'd think the New Zealand churches would be able to support them that much, but the church is actually in its infancy in New Zealand. They're still very young, a lot of younger congregations still getting up to the ground, and they're evangelistic like crazy, and they're going out and reaching a whole bunch of people, but still there's only so much you can do at a time. In all of New Zealand, with all of the congregations, I still believe there's not even one elder yet. And so you can see there's still a lot that needs to be done to train people, to get them up on the ground on their feet, and to get them prepared to be ready for such a role like that. And so there's a lot of good things in store, but that's why they need support. They need members, experienced members of the church to go over and to help them in all of that kind of stuff. But these are meat pies. The church was right across from a bakery, and bakeries are a really big thing over in New Zealand. The closest thing we have over here in America is a chicken pot pie, but it's nothing compared to these meat pies. You can find these anywhere. Even in McDonald's, they have meat pies at McDonald's. Why? Because it sells. I just wish we could get some meat pies over here to our McDonald's so you guys could know what I'm talking about. But maybe some beef or chicken or egg and bacon, stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of different types, kind of sometimes put in with some kind of gravy. But really interesting kind of food that you'd only find in New Zealand. Oh, this is also, they get really creative with their foods there, you know. So tourists like me will buy their stuff. This is a sushi sandwich. I didn't know they existed. I had to take a picture so I could send it to my mom. I don't know. I do kind of weird stuff like that. This is Carl and Adeline. They are two of the people that hosted us guys over in New Zealand while we were there. In our group, we went to 2 different cities over the course of the trip, but our group only had 5 people. Now, there was a much larger group of Freed students and some faculty and some adult chaperones, some parents, but we were only like 30 to 40 people, and what we did was there were 4 groups that split up throughout New Zealand. As you could have seen in the picture earlier of New Zealand, there's 2 islands that make up New Zealand, the North Island and the South Island. We were all going to the North Island. And so we were each going to 4 different parts kind of all over New Zealand, but this is where our group went, and so it was me and my good friend Cameron, and we stayed with Carl and Adeline. But they were very nice to have us in their home. This is also their cat, Nacho. Nacho and I grew very close. Everyone kept telling me each night, maybe when we were watching a movie, they were saying, Nacho is just using you. And I said, I know, but I'm using him too. He's my cuddle buddy. And so, wonderful cat. This is another view of the church building. I think I packed in a lot of pictures of this, but just kind of giving you a central view. This is right here in the parking lot, kind of in front of the building. It's kind of on the side and everything, and a lot of good views. This is their kitchen. It's a kind of smaller kitchen, but we had a lot of meals in there, kind of crammed in. Helps you grow close to people, I guess, even if you're claustrophobic. But it was a very nice place. This is what their auditorium looks like. Not the biggest, but they really fill up those pews. This is the back area. This is kind of where some of the classrooms are and the bathrooms and stuff like that. And so you see they look like some pretty normal classrooms like even you'd find here in the States, and that's kind of a view from the back. All right, this is my friend Richard. What we did a lot of while we were over in New Zealand was door knocking. We didn't have a gospel meeting. We didn't have any VBS. A lot of this was just strictly evangelizing, just going out to the community and having as many contacts or Bible studies as we could. And so it was a really neat experience. But this was my first door knocking, buddy. We called ourselves, tea buddies, I think is what we phrased it. In New Zealand, it's a cultural thing for people, especially if you're a friendly person, for them to invite you in for tea, which isn't a surprise because, I mean, New Zealand is where Hobbiton's at, right? It's all about tea time and afternoon tea and all that stuff. And so it's a big thing, their tea over there. They, like us, are still, trying to get away from the Brits. And so I guess everyone has their fondness of tea, but we were able to get a lot of good contacts and get tea from several people as we were going to their houses. They even have a little drink called Milo, which is similar to hot chocolate, just a lot creamier. But our joke, we knew we were doing everything for the right reasons, but everyone we came into contact with on our trip, we'd tell everyone else in the congregation, we're just going for the tea. We're not going for a Bible study or anything like that. We just want people to invite us into their homes and offer us tea. That was the little joke we had, but it was a great way to get to kind of know him, to get to know the people around there, and to just get to develop relationships with people. What we did while we were going around and doing this, and it's very interesting. I love this idea, and I want more congregations to kind of have this idea and it to kind of be a domino effect. But what we used was we had these little clipboards. They were cute little clipboards because they had a cover on it too in case it rained, so it wouldn't kind of get all the paper wet. But we had a religious survey on there. We'd go up there and to people's homes, and we'd ask them if they wouldn't mind participating in a religious survey. oftentimes I think we'll find it while door knocking, people aren't always the most receptive, especially here in America. People can be really skeptical, cynical. I don't want to hear you. I think I saw a sign on near someone's doormat one time, you know. I already got a good family. I love Jesus. You know, I've got my life together. Seriously, unless you're bringing me alcohol, see you later. I guess that's some of the Americans that you run into sometimes, and so it can be kind of hard as you're going door knocking to kind of find people that would be receptive. And I think it's because, you know, some people are scared, some people don't know what to think, you know, with all the people and things that people do out there. I even remember when I was a lot younger in high school or in middle school and someone would come to the door and ring the doorbell, I'd try to peek through the curtain and see who was there, and then if mom or dad weren't home, I would just like run and hide and wait till they left. You know, so I understand that. It's weird if someone comes to your door. And so this religious survey was a nice way to kind of be non-confrontational, to kind of seem more friendly, and to really let people know what we were all about. The first question we would ask them is, how many religious books would you have in your home? And so maybe they'd tell us 1, 5, 10, whatever, and then we'd use that to kind of bounce off on other questions, like what religious books are they? You know, is it the Quran? Okay, that's interesting. We love to talk with you more about that. We don't know much about that ourselves, and it's always been something that's very fascinating. Would we be able to get together and talk with you maybe about similarities or differences? If they say Bibles, we'll be like, oh, cool, you believe in Jesus too. Well, we love finding people who believe in the same thing and just getting together to have conversation with them and to talk about a lot of the things that we have in common. I've seen that used by Paul several times, using what he has in common with people so he can develop that kind of foundation before he goes into all these differences and, hey, this is what you guys are doing and I don't believe that's right, and that makes for a great first impression if you ever want to use it. But using those things that you have in common to kind of break through the ice, to kind of get to people, let them know you care, and kind of use that as a grounding point. And so then we would ask them, how many religious services have you attended maybe in the last month or the last year? We try not to put too much pressure on them. And maybe they'd tell us once. Maybe they'd tell us 4 times in the last month. We had people who sometimes went maybe like every day who were really dedicated. And so we'd kind of get a gauge of like, are these people who would be very invested, or are these people who maybe wouldn't be as invested, or, you know, where are they kind of in their spiritual walk? Attendance doesn't say everything, but it gives you maybe a little to go off of. And so it'd kind of be good for interest. And then we'd ask them 2 questions, and a lot of this is kind of based off of Fishers of Men, if you've ever gone through that. But we'd ask them 2 questions, you know, which one of these do you find is the most interesting? You know, is there a God, or will everyone go to heaven? And if they say, is there a God, then maybe you're talking with someone who doesn't believe in God yet, who you still would need to study that kind of stuff with. If they say, will everyone go to heaven? Well, they probably already believe in God, and so you can start from a different point. So it kind of gives you a good way to see where people are. And then there was information at the bottom, you know, if you wanted to get together and study with people. And one of the things that made it easy whenever we were going out and whenever we were doing these studies is sometimes before you get into a study, it's nice to just get to know people. Just kind of get to know where they're at in their lives. Just kind of get to know them and get to know them personally. Carl Cummings, the gentleman I just showed you a few slides ago, we were talking with him about it in his house, and he was talking about us with the widow at the well. The woman at the well. I don't think she was a widow. But how she was talking to Jesus, and Jesus didn't come up to her and say, I'm the Savior, I'm the Messiah, I'm going to do all these wonderful things for you. He could have said that, but that would have been kind of an awkward conversation. He kind of broke the ice. He got to know her first. He developed kind of a foundation, a little relationship with her. She was like, wow, you must really be someone. And then he was able to kind of let her know the truth that she needed to know with the proper timing. And so sometimes if having a Bible study means not getting to it for a while and developing that relationship first, then, you know, that's great, you know. If people are at least willing to talk to you, I mean, that's all you need as a starting point. You know, I think the old saying goes, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so sometimes developing those friendships is the best thing. But Richard and I, we got to know each other well, and it's great to get to door knock with other members of the church, because whenever you're put in those really awkward situations, and there's nothing more awkward than door knocking, I'm telling you. When you're put in those awkward situations with each other, you really grow close, you get to learn each other's stories, and what better way could there be to bond as Christians? And sometimes the best friendships are brought through the hardest of hardships, and door knocking isn't that hard, but it's really awkward hard. So this is one of the people that we studied with. I went here with Chris, the preacher's wife, and we studied with her. This is her little girl. I felt like half the time I was having to keep her occupied while they were continuing to study, but she took my fidget spinner. I was kind of trying to get it back, but she wouldn't want to let go of it, so I just said, you take care of it and keep it. Mary supplied me with more fidget spinners since I got back, but it was wonderful to get to know the people in that area, very friendly people. We also like to mess with people. If you're going to be door knocking day in and day out, you got to have some fun, and so when someone was sleeping on the job, we kind of decided to put a table over him. This was me and Richard's doing, just by the way. He had a very good sense of humor, but this is Cameron while he was sleeping. We were really trying to mess with him good. We also had a couple days in each place. One sightseeing day in Auckland and one in the other place we went to later. Just very beautiful areas. Cameron and I grew even closer there. I'm going to be able to go over and be in his wedding this next winter, so that'll be really exciting too. But he and his fiancée Jenna went on this trip, and there you have Kaylee in the front holding the camera, and me and Giselis in the back. And we really all grew really close together on this mission trip. And so another reason to go on a mission trip is to grow even closer to those Christians that you should already be close to, but it just develops a better bond. So this is Mount Eden. I was pretty sure it was the Garden of Eden. I had a theory on it. They told me it wasn't the Garden of Eden. I knew they were lying. But if you'll take a look at this, I found it very interesting because it's just this huge green hill, and it just like this really big crater underneath, and it's just very, very steep. And so it really looked cool, but they told me that's a volcano. So apparently that's one that's been dormant, otherwise grass wouldn't be able to grow on it. But they have a lot of volcanoes over in New Zealand. A lot of pretty points. The beaches over there aren't like the beaches over here at all. Maybe they all have sand and everything, but what you'll find about New Zealand beaches is they have a lot of rocks kind of up, protruding like huge mountainous rocks right by the beach. We don't have too much of those. I think it's just a lot of white or brown sand, and that's kind of it sometimes. But they have a lot of those big rocks. We climbed close to the top of that one, but it was a really pretty sight to look down from. The sand also, it isn't brown, it isn't white, it's black. And it's very crystally looking, and it's really neat because I think that has to do with a lot of the volcanic activity that they may have had at different points over there in New Zealand. But it was very, very beautiful, very breathtaking. It's neat to just look at all these pictures. But very, very nice experience. We went hiking everywhere. We were all kind of dead by the end of the day because we just couldn't move anymore. We probably hiked for miles on end. And then part 1.5, camp in Wellington. Auckland is at the very top of New Zealand, and Wellington is kind of at the bottom of the North Island. And so it's kind of an 8-hour drive. We were the group that was the farthest from the camp in Wellington, and so we got to fly. Everyone else was jealous. We didn't care. We laughed at them. No, we're not really that mean. This is some of the views that we got from the plane. Just really big mountainous snowy islands, and so that was really neat to see. This is some of the views over in Wellington. But Wellington was a lot more hilly than Auckland. Auckland was kind of more flat like you'd find down here in Florida, and there's a good picture of us together. Giselis wanted to stay in the car. She was still feeling kind of tired that day. This is the camp that we went to. It's a camp owned by the YMCA. I guess the YMCA exists all around the world too. Maybe they're trying to take over like Disney. But very beautiful camp. A lot of breathtaking sights once again. This was a kind of weekend camp. The entire trip was about 3 weeks, and so we'd spend maybe about a week in each destination. And for one weekend, all of the different groups from all the different parts of New Zealand, as well as all of the members of all of the congregations in New Zealand, would get together at this camp. Like, it was kind of a youth-based camp, and a lot of lessons, a lot of heavy lessons on how we can work with our youth to not only keep our youth, but to help our youth programs flourish and to not lose them, you know? And so a lot of good practical lessons, and it was a really nice time. You can see I'm training to be a photographer. Not really, but hey, maybe I can make some money in the future. But really, really nice view. These are some of the views. This is here in the kitchen. I think this is during some of the free time of the camp when all of the kids are kind of getting to socializing, to know each other. And you can tell they were really having a good time. This is kind of in some conference room that we used for worship. And this reminds me too, while we were in each location, they utilized us a lot in the worship services. A lot of the girls were able to help teach some of the classes and maybe some of the really young kids. Us guys, me and Cameron, we would switch off for Bible study and preaching and stuff like that. I think the first time we got there in Auckland, it was on a Wednesday. It was just in the afternoon. We were jet lagged. We were tired. We hadn't had sleep yet. They weren't going to let us take naps because they said if you take naps, then you won't get a good sleep the first night that you get here. So we were staying up until maybe 10 o'clock till we go to sleep. And they said, hey, one of you want to do Bible class? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, whew, I'm not ready for this. I was kind of blinking. My voice was going kind of hoarse. It was a struggle, but they put us right into action. And then I'd preach on one Sunday, and then Cameron would preach on the other. And so we were really utilized in that, and singing and prayers and everything. And this is just a lot of the singing that we were doing at camp and lessons. There were so many people at camp that you had to bring chairs in. That's encouraging when you've got so many people that you can't contain them all. And so there's a lot of pictures of us singing and a lot of lessons, just a lot into that. And you could tell we had a good time too. A lot of funnies and laughs, stuff like that. But camp was a really nice time. But something happened at camp. Camp was in the middle of the trip, and so here's the problem. A lot of the kids and people from the other groups were sick before they came to camp. And so what does that do? There's no better way to get everyone sick than to get a whole bunch of germy kids together, right? Don't worry, I'm still a kid at heart too. You can call me a germy kid too if you want. But I guess that's why they give them vaccines before they go to school. And so we all kind of got sick on the way back. And so imagine like trying to finish the second half of your mission trip. And this isn't like a vacation at all. Maybe we had a couple sightseeing days, but we were going hard at it. This was money being put to good use. And for the second half of the trip, though, it was like we didn't have energy. We were kind of feeling sick. We had colds. We just, to be honest, it was like sometimes you felt like you just didn't want to go out and do anymore. You just want to kind of lie in your bed and kind of recover before you go at it. But we had a job to do, and we were going to keep doing that job until we were done. And so we just kind of worked through it, and hey, we got some wonderful experiences from just continuing to work through. I have many thank you cards that I have yet to write out, and I've been very busy since I got back from New Zealand, but as soon as I get back home, that's going to be the first thing that I get to doing. And if you are someone out here tonight who has helped me go over there, then I want to thank you so much for that. And I want to thank you in person. I want to thank you in a thank you note. Maybe send you a message on Facebook later and say thank you again. No, maybe I'll get your number and text you. No one likes Messenger. But this is the Hamilton Church of Christ. It's still on the kind of northern half of New Zealand, but it's probably maybe an hour and 30 minutes away from Auckland, and so still really close. But as you'll notice with this congregation here, this isn't a normal church building. Like I said, the church is a lot smaller, a lot younger over in New Zealand, and so sometimes in these cities, it can be really hard to come by maybe property or building material and stuff like that, because I think it's maybe 5 million over in New Zealand, but there's people migrating over there all the time, just immigrants maybe from China, from Japan, from Samoa. I remember Richard was from Samoa, and that's just kind of an island a little ways off northern from New Zealand. And a lot of them come over to New Zealand because New Zealand is a lot better on the terms of just living and education. If you're thinking about your kids and you want them to have the best education, then you're probably going to want them to go to New Zealand instead of Samoa. And so a lot of people come over to New Zealand all the time, and so the housing costs up there are just like through the roof. And it's just very crowded a lot over there too. And so you think about a lot of the roads that we have here in America, and they're normally clean and you don't have cars just like parked on the side everywhere. Well, on New Zealand, like most of the roads, anywhere you go, a lot of cars are just parked on the side. And sometimes cars have to take turns kind of going through the traffic so that you don't like hit each other. It's kind of scarier driving a lot, and they drive on the left side of the road. But and so this church, they worship just in a house that used to be a home. So it was very neat. But here's a look on the inside. They really had some creativity to really do some things that were necessary. If you take there we go. That's my little buddy right there. I need to remember his name. I learned so many names over in New Zealand I couldn't remember everyone. But there is Lingy to the left. She is from Samoa too. And she was one of the people that I got to go out and to have a lot of Bible studies with. She's a native of there in Hamilton. And so one of the interesting things that we did on these campaigns was something that I hadn't seen before. A lot of times you get these campaigners and they come to these congregations and they do all these things, but normally they do it by themselves. And it leaves things kind of awkward, and let me explain that. When you have people coming from a different area for only a few weeks, and they're not going to be there that long, and they're going out and making all these connections, but these people who are natives living in their houses are building these connections with these people that are just about to leave, and they don't have any foundation, any blocks to build on with the people that actually live there, and it can be kind of weird, you know, like, hey, we were wondering if we could get back to you on that Bible study. Who are you? I haven't met you before. Don't come to my house. No, but the people from the trip, yeah, I don't, just stop, leave me alone. That's the kind of problems that you would maybe run into. And so what we try to do is if we got any contacts, then we would try to get the local people involved as well. Maybe if we went with two of us who weren't from New Zealand, if we got some kind of a Bible study, we'd keep at least one of us going back the next time who had a good relationship and good chemistry with that person and who would be able to develop some stuff there. But we'd also maybe switch out one of our people for one of the natives. And Lingy was a native, and so many of the people that we got into contact with, Lingy would just come back with us, and we'd be able to study more with them. And then they'd have kind of a grounds and a basis to continue with the church there. And so it's neat if you ever have people coming on mission trips over to your congregation to get as many people in your congregation as involved as you can so it can be most effective and so that you can help out, especially after the campaigners are gone. That's Dora also in the middle right there. Not the Explorer Dora, but I have a lot of respect for this Dora as well. She was one of the people who, whenever we were at the camp, she was making all the sports and all the activities for the young kids. And a lot of the campaigners who had been to New Zealand before, they didn't recognize Dora. They're like, where'd you come from? She was one of the people who was affected by one of the past campaigns done about 4 years ago. And so it goes to show that a lot of good things can come out of these door knockings. She wasn't even the one who was being studied with at first. I think it was one of her family, one of her relatives. But even indirectly, God can affect lives for people when He has ones who are just willing to go out and just do what He says. And so it was really, really interesting to see that. And you know, you never know. Whenever you send people out, maybe you might not be the most comfortable with it, but maybe you could find the next best door knocker in the world, you know, just in the next 4 years. And so it's neat to see what can really be done. But Dora and I, we had a whole bunch of studies with a lot of different people. This is the kitchen. We had a lot of studies with Mormons too. I was kind of freaking out because it's very different. There's some similarities, but you got to know who you're talking to when you go and talk to them. And so I was calling my dad. I was asking him, send me as much as you can so I could study it. And so we were studying like crazy the night before, and like I had to ask for excuses to get away from some of the work that we were doing in the congregation because I had so much studying to do for the next day for the context we were having to reach. In each city, too, in Auckland and Hamilton, each week that we were there, we had to stop door knocking early because we had so many people in context to get back to. And I'm not talking about a third world country where they answer the door easily. I'm talking about a first world country just like the U.S. here. And so we hit our cap point of about 30 for each city. And that'd be a hard number to keep up with, especially if all your campaigners are just about to leave. And so we just had people to talk to just flowing out our ears. We were just developing relationships right and left, and it was wonderful to see what could be done there. That's their back porch area. I'm not sure if you can see their faces too well, but that's James Kamek to the right, and his wife Emily sitting down there right beside him, and then you have their youngest daughter Shiloh, and Simon's over to the left. We did play Simon Says with Simon, and we had a good time. And then just a lot more of the members of the congregation there. It was really good to meet them all. One thing that was neat whenever we were there was in Hamilton, the congregation, each night after we were done with a long day of door knocking, and this is maybe like 6 to 8 hours of door knocking every day, just going to different houses, and you can imagine how much that will wear you out, especially if you've got a cold. But each night they would make us a different themed dinner. We got a Chinese dinner one night from actual people from China, right? That's cooler to hear in America because I hear people complain all the time. You're like, oh, this is just Americans making Chinese food. Well, this was legit. We got a real Chinese dinner. We got a Samoan dinner. I got to try chop suey for the first time in my life, and it was amazing too. We got a lot of different things. Hey, you know what? Here's some intermission right here. I forgot to pass around the rest of this stuff. This is some New Zealand money for you to look through as well. Here's a $5 bill. The ratio of New Zealand to American, if I can give you some kind of a place to go off of, I went to a currency exchange. I exchanged 350 in US, and I got about 475 back. So I was like, wow, I made over $100. I felt pretty good. But that if that gives you a little idea. They don't have pennies over there, I think, because U.S. is worth more. I don't think they have the 1 cent, but they have as little as 10 cents. And so there's a 10 center. You've also got a 20 cent. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, we have to go to 25 and make it an odd number in America, but here we keep it even. There's also a $1 coin and a $2 coin. Pretty neat. A lot more coins in their currency, I think. And then you've also got a 50 cent. And this is smaller than our 50 cent. By a long shot, I think. I also got a little bit of Australian money too, but this isn't about Australia. New Zealand is much better. At least that's what you tell the natives while you're there. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. But speaking of a lot of dinners that they made us, the Samoans, whenever they made their Samoan dinner, they wore these. These are lava lavas. They gave us each one on our departure so that we could remember them. I would like to wear mine right now. I wasn't going to wear it earlier during the Devo. I didn't want to distract you. But how could I give this presentation and not finish it while wearing my lava lava? These are really interesting. They wear these in Samoa a lot because it gets very hot over there. It's a lot closer to the equator than New Zealand is. And so I'm probably not wearing this right at all, but I'm trying. But they wear these a lot of times in place of pants because it can get so hot down there. And so it's something that kind of breathes and it's kind of easier on them to wear. And so I think the video is also like looking. They told me that it was going to be looking at the screen, so hopefully there's not a video of me like wearing a lava lava like this. But if there is, and if it goes online, I just want the Samoans to know that I'm proud of them and I love them a lot. Need to go to the stage? Yeah, no, not today. Okay, but these apparently you can hang them up on the wall. You can use them as a towel. You can use them as a scarf. It's multi-purpose, and so just a neat little thing with a lot of neat designs on it. So those were really nice to have as well. This is I was getting ahead of myself before I got to the slide. This is a lot of the work that we were doing in Hamilton. Auckland was just strictly just nothing but evangelism. We were able to get a little work done at the church building in Hamilton too. The guys, they gave us a lot of the manual labor of painting a lot of the rooms. We got a lot of that done. It seemed for me, I didn't help out as much as the other guys did, and it wasn't because I was like sleeping or in bed trying to get over my cold. For some reason, I just like had a lot of contacts that I had to get back to and stuff, and so I was like going all around Hamilton like one day just trying to reach as many people as I could and get back with people, and then the other guys were just kind of working at the building, but it was crazy. I think I'm like half extrovert, half introvert, and so I may be able to function as an extrovert, but sometimes I've just got to like get away. And talking to people and getting into deep conversations and trying to talk with people who have different religious beliefs than me and everything, it can be very draining. And so it can really kind of take your energy. And so I was kind of as tired at the end of the day as a lot of these guys were, just like painting away. And so it was a really neat experience. The girls also helped move a lot of the books around the church building. And if you've ever dealt with a church library before and a whole bunch of books that maybe haven't been moved around in like 20 years and you're trying to organize all that stuff, it can be a job. And so the girls did a wonderful job, and the congregation was really encouraged by that. This is me and Giselis. She was one of my first door knocking partners when we went over to Hamilton. She came with the Freed group as well. And we got to know each other really well, but the thing that happened here is we got done with our long day of door knocking, and now we're like kind of stranded in the dark at the end of the day. Our ride, the preacher and the van, they didn't find us till like 30 minutes later, and so we're tired. We've gotten through our entire stretch of the map that we were supposed to do for door knocking today, and so we were just kind of like sitting there hopelessly in the cold, shivering and waiting for a ride. But this is kind of the sentiment that you have, at the end of the day of door knocking in the cold. So it was a funny time, but I was like, let me get a picture. This is going to be memorable. So, but yeah, you get to develop a lot of bonds. This is Sarah. She was one of the people that we got to meet too, and it was really cool. The neat thing about Sarah is she's actually from the States. She's from New Mexico. You never know what kind of people you're going to run into, especially them being Americans. Apparently she was born in New Zealand, and she's lived in New Mexico for most of her life, and she just recently moved back over to New Zealand about 6 months ago. And so I guess it's a neat way of God saying, hey, you can reach out to Americans too, or Americans would understand as well, And I think I hate the old cliche, I went on this trip and wow, this really changed me. I struggle against that, but I think this trip really gave me a different perspective that I hadn't had before. And I've always been I haven't been the most big on door knocking in the last few years. I just think they're not as effective as they used to be, and that may be true. Door knocking may not be as effective as it used to be 50 years ago, but I think it has more to do with the method of how you do it and less with the door knocking itself. Depending on your approach, the kind of person you are, the way that you appear to a person, you can make it feel like something completely other than door knocking. It's like if you have that relationship with someone, then they're not going to look at it the same way. And so I think that makes all the difference. But even people in America, I think, could be reached. But she was super nice. She I think she said atheist or agnostic, but just as friendly as they come. And it was neat because we'd come up to some people and we'd be like, do you believe the same things in us? Cool. Do you not believe in the same things in us? Cool. Let's talk about it. Let's get to know each other. Let's be friends. And that's what we were able to do with Sarah. And so we had a study with her one day, and then another day we were just like, hey, we just want to get to know you as a person. We just want to get to know you personally too, because we really do care about that stuff as well. And so we just met with her in the food court, had a wonderful meal with her, just got to know her a little bit more as a person, and Giselle and I are still keeping contact with her to this day through email, through Skype, through other stuff like that. I'm going to see if I can give her a Skype call this week and kind of catch up with her on some stuff. But great connection there. And some of the members of the church were able to meet her. Here's some before and after pictures of what we did at the church building. Voila. Magic, isn't it? Poof. Cool. Yeah, I did that all with the flick of my hand. This is some of the fun stuff that we did in Hamilton. As you can see, we're hitting a piñata right here. Cameron was a pretty heavy hitter. And then if you take a look at me, I know you can't see it right here, but I had my eyes closed. Why? Because I can use the force. Was it effective? Of course. Why would you doubt me? It was a lot of fun. There was candy all over the floor. Don't worry, I got the vacuum. I was like, do you want me to go get something to clean this up? She was like, yes, please. So we also, on our sightseeing day, we got to go to Hobbiton, which is cool. It's like my dream place, someplace I've always wanted to go, and so it was cool to be able to do that. Got a few pictures from there, but I didn't want to take up most of the presentation with just that. But it was neat. I'm someday going to live in a hobbit hole. You guys are all going to see it happen. When I retire or have some more money, I'll build it, and I'll invite everyone over to make cinnamon rolls and stuff. Here, let me get back to that other picture. Yeah, I've just been pretending that it does the entire time. I didn't know if anyone would notice. This is the last Sunday that we were there. That's Cameron to the left. That is, he was giving the lesson, and then Jay was doing some of the singing. He's to the right, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Jay in a sec. They had a fellowship meal and everything, which was wonderful. A whole bunch of different foods. I mean, imagine the Chinese and the Samoans and all these other different people getting together and making something. Then you have a really good mix of different foods, and it was very delicious. But Giselle and I, we were only able to stay and eat for like 20 minutes, and having to rush during a potluck is not fun. During a potluck, you want to stay for like seconds and thirds and desserts and afternoon tea if you're in New Zealand. But we were in a rush, and I'll get back to that in a second. Giselle and Jenna, just a whole bunch of us having a good time and a lot of good Christian fellowship here. This is the boys. That's what we called ourselves, all of the guys on the trip. The phrase was, when you're with the boys, you break the rules. That was the thing. What the rules were, we didn't really care. We were just trying to sound cool. But when you're with the boys, you break the rules. Oh, wait. Yeah, there we go. That is Daniel to the right. Then me, Cameron, Jay, and James, and his son Simon. Simon was kind of cranky then, so I don't think he wanted to show his face. But Daniel and Jay, something cool about them is they've got different jobs that they work. Daniel even works in construction, and they have been going to Bear Valley. And if you know anything about Bear Valley, it's a preaching school in Colorado. So how in the world are they going to Bear Valley over in New Zealand? It's on the other side of the world. Apparently Bear Valley is a school that kind of is spread out into a lot of different parts of the world. I'm not exactly sure how big it is, but it is pretty decently big. And the neat thing about the church in New Zealand is you don't just have like just one person speaking all the time and doing different things. Maybe you have 8 to 10 men in the congregation who each work maybe secular jobs and can each help in maybe speaking and doing different things to lead the church and to help the church grow in those aspects. And so it's really cool to see these guys who aren't really going into preaching full-time at all, like the model here in America, but are going to this preaching school, learning all that they can just for the purpose of helping the church. And so that was really neat to see so many different people helping out and stuff like that. This is me and Simon, cutest kid ever, and me and Shiloh. And then it was time to go, right like I said. Right after the potluck, we were supposed to leave. We were supposed to head out, but we couldn't, and we had to speed through our potluck because there was one guy by the name of Lyle. He was a college student there, and he had exams all the way through Saturday night, and we were leaving the next day on Sunday, and there was like there's no way that we'll have time to like have a study with them. But when you're talking with people, and you're trying to get to know them, you find whatever way you can and you make it work, right? And so we tried to time it a little right after the potluck so we'd have a little window of time to talk with him. And so we said, I think we were planning on leaving around 2. We said, we'll meet with you around 1. And so we met with him at a local coffee shop, and we got to know his story too. I think he said he had a mom who was religious, and then he had a dad who wasn't religious. And so he was kind of caught in the in-between. And so to have some people who were just willing to come up and to share what they believe and what they're passionate about, and to come over and to spend their time, all of their time during this trip doing that, just to give people opportunities like that, he really appreciated it. And so it may be hard door knocking sometimes, but you can really find some diamonds in the rough sometimes, and Lyle was one of those people. And so it was a good note to leave on. We didn't know how it was going to go. You never know how it's going to go when you're first talking to someone and you're like, yeah, we're going to meet up later. But Lyle was just like the coolest guy ever. I remember after our trip, I think it was maybe about a week and a half later, and I think this was last week, shortly before I was going to come over here, I was getting back in touch with Lyle. He got to develop a little bit of relationship with the preacher down there in Hamilton. But we said, we also want to get to know you more. We had a great conversation. For us and for him, we didn't want to leave. We just kept talking. And James had to take us away like our dad, like, hey, it's time to go home. But we just kept talking. And so I got on with him. I was like, do you have a Skype? He's like, yeah. I'm like, here's my username. Find me real quick and let's chat. Over there in New Zealand, it's about 17 hours ahead. And so if it's Wednesday, they're at like 1:10 on Thursday, 1:10 in the afternoon. So it's kind of weird. And so the best opportunities to speak with them sometimes are maybe like late at night for us. And so I remember I got my computer, and at like 12 o'clock in the morning, I'm calling Lyle, and we're just catching up, and we just talked for maybe about an hour, just getting to know each other better. And Giselis even got her own Skype account recently so that we can have a three-way conversation and so we can continue to get to know each other's beliefs and everything. He asked us some maybe harder questions at certain points, but when we said, hey, we're just college students like you, we're just 21, we don't know everything in the book. But if you give us time, we will go and we will find you every single answer that you need to the extent that you want it. And he appreciated that. Just that truthfulness and that honesty. And so it was a nice way to end the trip. And before we left, we went back to Auckland because the airport was there and they had a wonderful singing and a fellowship meal. And then it's back to the States. And that's all, folks. I got warnings on the time from other people, but I'm sorry, I just get carried away sometimes. I wanted to have, there we go. I know I'm done. I know if you want to leave, I'm not going to stop you. If you go running out, I'm not going to go chasing you. But I wanted to leave just any time open for questions and answers. If you guys have anything you want to ask, I'd be glad to let you know. I forgot to pass around this little bird right here. This is the national bird. It's the kiwi. The national bird is the kiwi. The people are also kiwis. And so if you go over there, understand this. Don't say you're going to eat a kiwi. Say you're going to eat a kiwi fruit if you're going to eat one, okay? Because you're not allowed to eat the birds. You're not allowed to eat the people either. So just understand that before you feel threatened by the native New Zealanders, okay? And so if you want to see that, I'll just be passing around too. But any questions?